Now, homeless people in Gauteng might soon find a long-term accommodation post the lockdown. The Provincial Social Development Department is looking into a sustainable strategy that will see those without proper homes in the province either reunited with their families or put into shelters. Now, thousands of people have been accommodated in various temporary facilities since the start of the lockdown in March. And now, with the further easing of regulations, Gauteng Social Development MEC Dr. Nomathemba Mokgethi says that they will still be provided for, and then she joins us now to discuss these regulations and developments further. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Dr. Mokgethi, and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina, and good morning to your listeners.
Dr. Mokgethi, do you have an estimate of how many homeless people there are in Gauteng at the moment?
We have close to between 15,000 and 7,000, but the ones that we are currently housing are estimated at 3,000.
So assisting homeless people, it was something that at the beginning of the lockdown, we saw people being removed from the streets. They were nowhere to be seen. We reported on the camps and other accommodation facilities that were set up. But how did that go? Because there were complaints. As I say, it was a bit rocky. There were complaints of overcrowding, for example. People were complaining that they were not getting fed. And after a few weeks or so, we saw people trickling back onto the streets. So what were some of the challenges in housing the homeless?
Sakina, I think what we also need to take into consideration is that even though they are homeless, but they still have rights. So we could not keep those who did not want to be kept in our temporary shelters. We could not force them to stay there, because when they are in these temporary shelters, there are rules and there are regulations, and some of them could not abide to those rules or did not want to abide. So they chose to self-discharge themselves. But we did manage to have those that wanted to stay in the shelter, where they were receiving counseling, and then the process of reunification with the family started, and then at least those were our successes.
And absolutely right there in terms of, balancing rights and, of course, some of government's responsibilities. But if one has to consider, Dr. Mokgethi, some of the issues that forced individuals to live on the streets to begin with, then getting them back home to their families may not be the best idea. Or what has your research showed you in regards to this?
Yes, Sakina, I agree with you. Some of them, they don't want to be reunified with their families, and we respect that. But those who do want to be reunified with their families, we do communicate with the families. There is a counseling process that is unfolding, and then ultimately the person will be officially handed over to the family. But those who don't want to be reunified with their families, we respect that. And those are the people that we are planning as Gauteng provincial department. Cabinet has approved a comprehensive intervention strategy or plan with a budget of 88 million that will cater for all their needs as they are housed in these overnight shelters.
So you say the plan will cater for all the homeless people whom you will be sheltering to all their needs. What would those be? And how many people exactly are you planning to house in these units?
Okay, we're planning around 3,000 according to the statistics that we have currently. And then they will also be provided with skills. We're going to appoint NPOs that will be able to give them skills so that when they want to exit our shelters, at least we know that they have skills. And then they will also be provided with medical care for those who are on chronic medication. Currently, we do have files for all of them. We know each and every one what conditions do that person have. For an example, there are those who are mentally ill that we will also be catering for medically. And then there are those who are drug addicts that we'll be catering for. as inpatient and outpatient in the NPOs that are providing rehab.
Does Gauteng Department of Social Development actually have the capacity to do that? Because we do have a serious drug problem in this province, and not just with homeless people, but one would say more pervasively. But in terms of the number of homeless people that you believe have drug problems, how many people are we talking about?
Currently, I don't have the exact numbers, but what I know is that I agree with you that we don't have capacity as a department, but we will be appointing NPOs that will specifically deal with the making sure that the drug addicts are rehabilitated. And as I was visiting the centers for the drug addicts, I also made a commitment with them to say, if you are clean, you stay clean. I will be roping you in to be ambassadors so that we can be able to reach out to our communities in making sure that we raise awareness on the dangers of drug addicts.
And
Addiction, I'm sorry.
what will be in it for these people as you rope them in? Because that was going to be one of my other questions in terms of that sustainable plan to provide long-term accommodation. The question I was going to ask you was, how will people then sustain themselves in this accommodation?
We will be providing for them. As I have earlier indicated, we are going to appoint NPOs that will provide for their needs. They will provide food, they will provide water, they will provide electricity, because we will be funding them to make sure that their needs are taken care of.
But for how long, Dr. Mokgethi? Because one would imagine that it would not be sustainable to do this indefinitely. So what are some of the other plans that you may have to make sure that people will, in fact, be able to take care of themselves?
Remember earlier I said we will skill them. We're appointing NPOs that will give them skills development.
What
and then as and
sort of
when
skills?
they have these skills, they will be provided with starter packs, and then they can start their own businesses. And then there are those who are doing sewing, and I've also witnessed that there's quite a number of them. We're going to group them into co-ops so that they can be able to sustain themselves. And then for those who are in the shelters, mainly the youth who have degrees and diplomas and grade 12, we will be making sure that we accommodate them in our learnership and internship programs. And when there are posts advertised, we have agreed that we will advertise in this center so that they can be able to access these adverts and be able to apply.
So with regard to these starter packs that you mentioned, what exactly will they entail?
The starter packs, for an example, if you we skill you to do beauty salon, we will be able to give you an amount of money that will cater for you to buy products so that you can be able to also rent a place where you can then provide that service and then sustain yourself.
Which is very interesting because we have a huge unemployment problem, but an even bigger youth unemployment problem in this country. And the reason I'm saying it's interesting, Dr. Mokgethi, is because if these benefits then become available to people who are homeless in Gauteng, are you not concerned that this will spur others on to take to the streets so that they can access the benefits?
No. Remember, we're not only catering for the youth that is homeless. When we do the adverts, it's opened for every individual or youth who is in Gauteng. We open for everyone, but we also give them that opportunity to can be able to participate in that process of recruitment.
So, given some of the past experiences where we've seen before, there have been drives by government to get homeless people into shelters, offered assistance, but then some of them end up going back to the streets. Do you have a plan to actually try and make sure that most of them actually do not return? And if so, what would that plan be?
We do have a plan, we do have an exit plan, and this plan will be communicated as we have already started communicating with the homeless. We already started a blitz where we are taking home affairs for those who don't have IDs to have IDs. And then we're also taking a SASSA department for those who qualify for a pension or grant so that they can access that grant and then be placed into the homeless shelters. And then we also communicate our strategies to them. We also brought in NDA. I think it was also in the shelters from yesterday, where they are able to group them into co-ops and then also offer support that they can be sustainable. And this does not only apply to those who are in shelters. We're also targeting the GBV centers to make sure that we also provide them with the skills so that they can be able to sustain themselves and not be dependent to their abusers.
And coming out of this lockdown now, one of the issues is, of course, many people who may have been quite stable, they may have been okay, they may have had homes prior to the lockdown, may have lost their jobs and everything that they had. Political analyst Sandile Swana talking earlier about how even before lockdown, many South Africans, especially those considered to be middle class, were literally 3 paychecks away from a homelessness and financial instability. So with that in mind, are you mindful that there may be more people entering the ranks of the homeless in the province?
Yes, we are aware of that. And in fact, they were already, some of them are part of those Sakina, because most of them who are in the homeless shelters, some of them lost their jobs during the lockdown, but we just pray that now that the economy is open, they will be able to go back and seek jobs and be able to be appointed again.
Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Dr. Mokgethi. We'll certainly follow up with you, and maybe it's worth coming through and having a look at exactly how these programs work and unfold. Thank you to the Gauteng MEC for Social Development, Dr. Nomathemba Mokgethi, for talking to us about the plans by the province to provide long-term accommodation for homeless people post-lockdown. All right, let's take a quick break and then